Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. Merry New Year! Um, it's episode 182. This is our first one of 2024. I'm Aaron, and with me, as always, is Dave and Fredo. Happy New Year, guys!
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So
Feliz Año Nuevo.
that's enough of that language. Uh,
McConkey.
this is we have to put an MA rating on this because no, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's the same deal with my kids. Like
Actually-
they'll bust out the French, and I'm like, that
So-
one wasn't so good, was it?
So I have to tell this story. So I like one of the best in services I ever had as a teacher was this is when I was in Nebraska, and our modern language teachers got up and said, "We got a problem," and said our native Spanish speaking children are realizing that their white teachers don't realize what they're saying, don't understand what they're saying. So they're using all the good words in the hallway and in the classroom, and nothing's going down. So they handed us a piece of paper with on the left side had the Spanish word, and on the right side the English translation. Every swear word you could get through. And so and they sat there and said such and such means meh, such and such means meh. Went through like half the list, and I said, Carolyn, we got the right side of this. And everybody's like, shut up, Aaron. We want to see if she gets through it all. But anyway, so fast forward like a week later, I'm on hall duty, and I'm sitting there, and it was right next to the cafeteria, next to the library. It was easy hall duty. And I was just sitting there on my computer, just, surfing away, and kids are just yammering in the hallway. And all of a sudden I heard one of these words, and I looked up, and I caught eyes with one of our Latina students, and she looked at me like, oh, he understood that. She wasn't the one that said it. It came from a male voice. But we had this moment of, oh, you understood that. And so then a second word off the list came out. So I started closing my computer and standing up. And then a third one came out, and I got in this kid's face, and I said, I don't care what language it's in. We don't use those words in this school. And he said, F you.
McConkey.
I mean, but he didn't censor himself. And if that would have been like second year teacher Aaron, I would have like turned, blah, 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 blah. But it was like 14-year teacher Aaron, and I just started laughing at this kid. I was just like, so that was the best in service I ever got. So that has nothing to do with Star Wars. You all came here for Star Wars, but holiday. What's some good gifts that we got? Or maybe you didn't get any gifts. I don't know. Maybe that was an awkward question.
Well, we had decided not to do Christmas presents this year because of family weddings and whatnot, but I still got a couple of things. So wearing two of them. One, got a new watch, which is nice. And then wearing a Pelicans hoodie
Go
because,
Pels.
yeah, exactly. Ain't it nice that they came good right on the time I started getting merch. And then the big kind of Christmas present I gave to myself is I've been eyeing the Lego Great Pyramid of Giza set for almost a year now. And I was like, well, since I don't get anybody presents, which is not true, I gave people presents, but I was like, I'm getting that for myself. So during the holiday break, once everybody was gone and the holidays were done, I just set up at my table at my living room and just slowly put it together. And that was
There's
such a fun experience.
an NBA player that's a big Lego maniac. And
Mhm.
like sports writers, I can't remember who it was, but sports writers are like, trying to like, you play with Legos. And apparently, like at a press conference says, I don't play with Legos. I build Lego.
Yeah.
And then to my point, when Britt and I were talking about this, it's like, who cares if he's playing with Legos? Where who cares? It's like, yeah, I have all these Star Wars figures around me in this room, but I'm not like Dark Helmet, playing with Star Wars figures, but what if I did? Who cares? That's my thing. So I'm glad you got the Legos. I'm glad you put them together. And if you want to play with them, you play with them. So
This is the thing. We talk about toys, and this is we've had that discussion on a couple of different episodes, I think. So if you're interested in this topic and you've not heard us talk about this before, go back through our archive and see us talk about Legos and things of that nature. But it's not the kind of thing as a parent that I ever want my kids to feel like they shouldn't be doing. I want my kids to treat other people with respect. I want them to do their best in school, and I want them to learn to be self-sufficient in this world. Those are like my objectives. That's it. I don't want them to feel bad for liking the things that they like.
Well,
And I
yeah,
don't understand why anyone would police that stuff.
it's like Jamal Williams with the Saints. One of the best things is that he's a huge Pokemon geek. It's just I love seeing especially professional athletes like embrace their nerd, and that's just cool. And I think that is actually a really good thing for like your kids to see, because yeah, you you have to get old, but you don't have to. Well, I guess you have to grow up, but you don't have to get old. I suppose that's the thing. But anyway, sorry. So go ahead, get Legos. Dave, what was on your what'd Santa bring you?
I think Pelicans hoodies were in this year. I got a Pelicans hoodie too. I was psyched about that. And I got Atari 50, which is the 50th anniversary collection of Atari.
And I was just joking. I was like, "Is combat on it?" And you're like, "Yeah, combat's on it." I was just like, "Oh, right on."
Yeah, it's got everything. And the best thing about this game is that it's basically like a tour through a history museum, in the best way. Like if you're a history geek at all, it's interactive. It gives you insights and blurbs and interviews and all this context for why like all these older games mattered and why Atari was like the biggest thing going. And it's just really, really cool.
So what is the game on there that you're like, I forgot that this game existed and I love this game?
Oh gosh, I haven't even gotten that far. I've been stuck in Breakout. So just knocking out a bunch of Breakout.
Speaking of which, a little bit of news. Did you guys hear about the kid who like beat Tetris?
Yeah.
What was it, like 130 level 137 or 139 or something like that? I mean, how th- that thing had to have been going fast. How do you even possibly do it? But anyway, that was just kind of
No idea. Yeah, no.
so. Anyway, yeah, on my end, I think I told you guys. Well, before we started recording, I finally got the Small Viking axe game, and it's basically this 12-inch diameter target, and you get three. They're tiny axes. They're dark. It's a dart game, So it'll be in my backyard to. It's a fun little dart game. So I was so excited to get that. Yeah. Anyway, cool. Let's see here. Well, tonight, what we're going to be doing to start the top of the year, what we're going to talk about to start the year, is the releases that are coming out through Disney Plus, the Star Wars stuff. They got 4 biggies that are coming out, and we're going to kind of talk about what that's going to be about, what our expectations are, what our thoughts are. We've also got a little bit of news, but first, Star Wars trivia, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Fredo, to you. Softball question. Who does Jabba call a weak-minded fool?
Would be Bib Fortuna.
That would be Bib Fortuna. Yes, it is. Dun, 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 dun. All right. See, told you it was a softball question. Dave, who concludes that Imperial stormtroopers were behind the attack on the Jawa sandcrawler?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It was Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's part of the Star Wars drinking game, too, is that any time that Obi-Wan is like acting as a detective, you have to take a drink. That happens a couple times. So anyway, all right. 2 easy questions. Let me go. Let's see if we can get 3 for 3 here. Who instructs R2-D2 that he has, quote, a great deal to learn about human behavior? And I find this very interesting because actually the same character uses the same word in another instance. It's C-3PO. And it is C-3PO. Um, I found it very interesting in Empire Strikes Back when they close the blast doors and Luke is out in the wasteland of Hoth, and C-3PO refers to him as a human being. I think we talked about that. Yeah, well, not that, but we had an episode where we talked about things that take you out of moments, and that was one of mine. It's like when they use, idioms, like, well, when Poe says, damn it, or when Han says, "I'll see you in hell." Sorry, don't have to bleep those. I'm quoting, but it's those types of things. And then so when I was like, I think I was. Empire was going and I was doing some things in the kitchen and he says human being and it made me stop and go, that's weird. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
And that was an interesting bit whenever you see something from our universe, so to speak, kind of seep through. But then you always kind of go like, you need to, it plays different when it's said by somebody like Han Solo, who's more of an audience stand-in, somebody who you go, okay, he's going to be, uh, speaking for the audience in a way. It's a lot weirder when it's somebody like Obi-Wan or Padme or somebody of that level.
Well, I mean, other things like, not to dwell on this, but there's other things like The Last Jedi was on. Something that just makes me go, that's weird, is that Princess Leia has a water bottle on, or I should say General Leia has the water bottle on the table as they come out of hyperspace. And it looks exactly like the water bottle that you would get at, the sporting goods store or something. And that was just kind of weird. Another thing was Dr. Pershing is the only character in Star Wars to wear glasses. It's like these.
Well, also Wilford Brimley wore glasses, right?
Was he in Star Wars?
Yeah,
Yes.
in the Ewok movie.
Oh, well.
Yeah. But like that, even when we talked about that, I remember being like, this is the first appearance of glasses, we think, in Star Wars. It's so strange to see something of our world.
Like I said, just seeing that human behavior is just kind of like, well, are they humans? I don't know. We're never really told. I guess C-3PO told us. So I guess there are humans in the Star Wars universe. So, all right, cool. Well, good
job. When you say
on
humans, do you mean Terrans?
Like hey, let's not cross Marvel and Star Wars. Come on. Let's not get, chocolate in my peanut butter, all right? Speaking of which, over the holidays, I also rewatched Falcon and Winter Soldier, and with the exception of the speech at the end, which I understand why I was there, but it was just really awkward for Captain America to give the moral of the story on, the city street after, that was just awkward. Wasn't the message. The message was good, but it was just an awkward scene. Otherwise, that entire series was really good. I'm still just wondering why people like, and we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but why people have such a problem with Marvel Disney Plus shows. Because so far actually even Star Wars Disney Plus shows that we've talked about, upon rewatch, it's like, wow, these are really good. Anyway, so.
Just off the top of my head, I think that there's a certain expectation that comes with Marvel and Star Wars when they've primarily been movie franchises, where they transition to even the streaming form of TV, because that's a different medium. And, kind of like you're saying, don't get chocolate in my peanut butter. This is no longer, my regular chocolate bar. This is now M&Ms, and some people dig M&Ms, some people don't. So I guess it's a different format. So and there's some fair criticisms as to how it gets adapted, how they all seem to follow a certain pattern. Ultimately, though, as long as you're getting more, I'm happy with more.
Well, as we get into the news now, I will say this will be our segue, is that I think that movie creators should stop trying to please the audience, because they're not going to. Make the movie you want to make, and and studios make the movie you want to make, you're going to have, jerks out there that are going to say dumb things and are going to be mad because you put a water bottle in their spacecraft. You know, this, just make the movie you want to make, and don't talk about it. Just promote it like you did back in 1977 with commercials and ads, and just you're making enough money. People will go to the movie and then just tune it out. So with that, I'm going to toss it to Fredo for news, because we have one big one that fits right along with this line of thought.
So yeah, so earlier in the week or sometime over the last week or so, Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, the director of Miss Marvel as well as the next Star Wars movie, was doing an interview with CNN. By the way, two-time Oscar winner, so you might know a thing or two about directing. Anyway, so they started asking her about being the first female director, first woman to direct a Star Wars movie. And so her quotes kind of got started an uproar on the same segments of the fan base that had a bone with Ray and had a bone with a certain number of aspects of the Star Wars projects that we've got in the last few
Rabble,
years.
rabble, rabble,
I'll
rabble,
just
rabble, rabble.
exactly. Yeah, I'll just read you her quotes just to see if it was worthy of any of that. So she says, quote, "I'm very thrilled about the project because I feel what we're about to create something very special," end quote. By the way, the project is the new Daisy Ridley, Ray Skywalker forms the new Jedi Order movie that's supposed to take place 15 years after the end of Rise of Skywalker. She continues, quote, "We're in 2024 now, and it's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape a story in a galaxy far, far away," end quote. Now, to recap, we've had women female directors in Star Wars, like Deborah Chow did Obi-Wan Kenobi. Bryce Dallas Howard has done The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and a couple of other things. But so far, all the feature films have been dudes, guys, specifically white dudes at that. When they ask her about, making, she posts on Instagram that she's always been, quote, "I've always been attracted to the hero's journey, and the world definitely needs more heroes. The blueprints of the heroes we see on screen are rooted in reality. I've spent my life meeting real life heroes who have overcome the most oppressive empires, battled impossible odds, and that to me is the heart of Star Wars, which is why I was attracted to the promise of a new Jedi Order and why I'm particularly excited about being immersed inside a Jedi Academy with a powerful Jedi Master." End quote. Now, tell me what in that is worthy of "Rah, rah, 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 Star Wars is woke. Rah, 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 rah."
I mean, you're asking the wrong people here, because I mean, I think Dave would probably agree with me here on this one. It's like, the thing I think about is that I don't have a fragile male ego 99% of the time, because I grew up with a very strong independent mother, very strong independent sister. I'm married to one of the strongest in, you know, just most, smartest females I've ever been around, smartest people I've ever been around. Um, so like I said, it's like, I don't get bent out of shape over these things. The other part of it is that when you are, this is what I hate when people are like, it's kind of like they're coming after Green Day for, being all political in their music. It's like, it's punk rock, dude. Anyway, but it's like, and and that's art. But when they're talking about, athletes, getting into things, I always say that if you have made it to a point where you have a podium to speak from, you have an obligation to make it easier for people who come after you. And I mean, who not come after you like with pitchforks, but who come, who are to make the path
Follow.
easier for others, especially if you are from an underrepresented community, whether that is female, whether it's African American, whether that is Muslim, whatever. Um, so she's saying it's about time that a Star Wars story is written and directed by a female. 100%. And you're right. She's multi Oscar winner. So it's like, she has a podium and she wants to make it easier for more female directors and more female writers. I get behind that 110%. As long as the movie doesn't suck. It doesn't matter if anybody who directed it. It just so anyway.
We're all pretty much in unison, and we've been in unison for the longest time. Anybody who listens to our show knows this, that we're going to side on the side of diversity and inclusion.
You're not married to a strong woman either, are you at all? Not
No,
at all.
yeah, no, not at all.
She's really passive. She never speaks her piece.
Yeah, that's never happened in the history of anything. No. These are the sorts of things that I think we probably shouldn't give as much oxygen to as we do, and we're talking about it. But it's she's either gonna do great or she's not gonna do great. And I'm eager to see what happens. I love that she has the opportunity to do this. And I want to see different spins, different takes, different characters, different stories. I don't want it to always be one thing, always over and over and over and over. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to for a lot of people. Even people who wouldn't self-describe as being bigoted, that feel like, well, this is not my Star Wars, right? Like they're very adamant that the Star Wars needs to be a particular way. And so I try to be respectful to that without just immediately dismissing that person as being small-minded. And I think for a lot of people that are, of our generation that experienced those movies the same way we did, and those things touched their souls in a really profound way, I understand why, other things don't live up to what my vision of a perfect Star Wars is. Now, fear of change is just not how I choose to operate. If I wanted to watch A New Hope again, I would watch A New Hope. If I wanted to watch The Empire Strikes Back again, I would watch The Empire Strikes Back. I don't need to see it remade, essentially, over and over and over and over again. And like when I'm critical of Star Wars and of Disney, it's of that tendency to sort of fall into some of the same traps that they've traditionally utilized in the past. And so I don't want to see them play it safe or be overly beholden to a particular idea of what Star Wars needs to be. And so one of the ways that you achieve that is you allow other people that come from different backgrounds to participate in the discussion. And again, for better and worse, right? A lot of people didn't like some of the designs that Doug Chiang came up with, for example. But he came from a different background and a different mindset, and he offered what is absolutely 100% a different spin on Star Wars than we had previously seen. And people can debate the effectiveness of that and how much they liked it and how much they didn't, but the fact that he came from a different background and they allowed him into that role and gave him the keys to the Corvette, I mean, I'm all for that. You're gonna have some things that work really, really well and some things that don't work so well. But you know what? You figure that out as you go along, and you're like, well, this is the stuff that worked well. Let's do more of that. Okay.
Well,
and I think we're seeing that play out right now.
What it does, you talked about, you said maybe this person's not bigoted, and that's the thing, is that there's a difference between being racist and bigoted and the unconscious biases that everybody has. Yeah. and recognizing those unconscious biases. It's, it's kind of like, being male. Am I always using the he pronoun in whenever I talk or whenever I'm describing something, whenever I'm writing, or, it was interesting when I left teaching and I started working for this startup. And by the way, the startup was the most diverse team that I've ever worked with. And I think I was, no, there was like on the team of like 8 of us, there was like 2 white guys, and so it was, I mean, so I had to make a video. They like, it was just like on, and it was a hangout of me and 2 of my friends, Google Hangout with me and 2 of my friends, just to demonstrate how to use Google Hangouts. And they came back and they said, "This is great, but we need to make it more diverse." And I didn't come at it from, only white people can be in my hangout. It was just, "Hey, Sean, hey, Dave, can you be in this hangout and help me out?" Did not occur to me have, I'm a white male, so let's have, a female in there. Let's have somebody, have a person of color in there so that, it is more, inclusive, more welcoming. That only brings more people to your product. It's like, so those were unconscious biases that I had to, recognize. And so, yeah, I mean, so it does. It only makes things look more like the world that we live in. So,
And I think when you look back, there's an understanding that when you know better, you do better kind of thing. You know, back in even as late as the late 1970s, the likelihood of a director like Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, a woman of color, getting even the 10 million that George Lucas got to make Star Wars was like low likelihood. So now there exists a world and an opportunity for her to be able to take what is one of the biggest franchises in the world and do her own take on it. Just like there's a chance for I know directors of all kinds to step into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or directors of all kinds to direct any kind of thing, any background, any history. What we tend to forget whenever we give, as Dave says, air to the idiots, is that there is a whole wide world out there that doesn't look like them, doesn't talk like them, doesn't think like them. And if you're only catering to them in order to appease them, the movies you make will always look the same. And at some point, there is a law of diminishing returns there. Whereas if you spread your opportunities out there, if you take the chance to go, okay, let me speak to that young girl who's as much a Star Wars fan as you or I or Dave. If you're looking at that person of color who lives halfway around the globe, and make sure that they feel that they can be a part of this universe, that who knows, they're going to be, I mean, they may not end up working in Star Wars. They may end up coming up with the next Star Wars, the next great fictional universe that that sharpens the imagination and connects with people. And there's always an opportunity cost whenever you don't take chances. So, given the fact that, look, Disney's never going to lose money. Everybody goes, "Oh my God, this could cause money." No, no. The worst that happens is there's a bad movie made, and we move on to the next one because Star Wars is too big to
but
fail. So take the opportunity, take the risk, make something that might be bigger than just a movie that just comes out and 6 months later everybody forgot.
and before we move on, but to Dave's point, here's what I don't want to have happen, which is what I'm fearful that Lucasfilm will do, is that if the movie does like Han Solo, the Solo a Star Wars story type returns, if it doesn't do so well, are they going to go, "Oh, what's different about this? Oh, well, let's not, yeah, you know what I mean? Are they going to like, okay, yeah, we shouldn't have had a woman do it. Let's go back to what works. Let's find JJ. That's my fear. And maybe I shouldn't say Lucasfilm specifically. It's just that, you know, money talks and corporations can get really stupid when their money ain't talking as loud. And that's my fear is like, but here's the other thing. pre-internet, to the two of you, when a movie was coming out, did you ever give a rat's butt as to who was directing it or who wrote it?
No.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't. I mean, unless it was like Scorsese. Oh, or Francis Ford Coppola. There was a couple like big names where it's like, okay, you kind of know what you're gonna get. Otherwise, it was just like, does the movie sound like a good movie? That's the movie I want to go to. That's not saying that it's not important that we have, diversity in writing and directing. I'm just saying it's like, our, I don't know.
It's but I also think it speaks to the shifting landscape of Hollywood where, if you made, say, a movie that didn't connect with an audience when we were young people, when we were kids, yeah, it would cost money, but
Can
it
you put The
wouldn't, it may
Killers
not.
when we were young at this point? So,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's that, it wouldn't necessarily bankrupt the studio, so to
well,
speak. And that's the issue is that now, whenever you make one of the, making a Star Wars movie costs you $400 million, $500 million.
uh,
And so the expected return in order for it to be a hit is no longer just make your money back. It's make your money back plus get to a billion.
I'm
And,
sorry.
it's impossible. It's like, that's the expectation.
And not, we're going way deep on this and way too long probably, but I mean, there's also this, the fact that the white male is going to be, not in the majority in the very near future, um, is scaring the hell out of a lot of white males, and I'm not saying that is a forgivable thing. I'm just saying that, I mean, that's just, you know, until you said the fear of change doesn't stop you, Dave. It's like, sometimes I think that's what a lot of these people on the internet, they're fearful of that change. And when they realize that it's not going to be so bad, you know, then maybe they'll shut up. I don't know. Or maybe they'll die off. Who knows?
The other thing too, and again, the elephant in the room is that for a lot of people, they haven't liked a lot of the Star Wars content that they have received, and again, for whatever reason, um, everyone has their own personal reasons. But if you don't like what you've seen over the last decade, yeah, you're going to be skeptical about what you're going to see going forward. But again, like when you start throwing things into this, like race and gender, and just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop, because it's not doing you any favors. It's not doing anyone else any favors either. Oh, we're gonna boycott it now. Or we're gonna review bomb it now, or we're gonna, make our YouTube videos about it. Come the heck on. I mean, what are you, 12? Like, move on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no. You end up in a position where, like kind of like Aaron was saying, it's like you're not checking your own privilege as to, wait a minute, I've had all these movies made for me. Why, it's like instead of acknowledging, wait a minute, it's an opportunity to tell a new story that I may like. We'll move on.
Yeah, like Dave was saying, we'll move on. So
Yeah,
we're all
to
of the
nicer
same
news.
mindset here. Yeah. So anyway,
So to nicer news, speaking of solo Star Wars story, Kira, aka Emilia Clarke, was one of the honorees at this New Year's celebration. Her and her mom. So every year, at the end of every year, the British Royal Crown issues out a certain number of awards for people who do charitable works in the United Kingdom. So Emilia Clarke and her mom started a nonprofit organization called Same You back in 2019 that helps provide people with services uh, specifically aimed at folks with brain injuries. For those of you who don't know, Emilia Clarke back in her 20s suffered two brain hemorrhages, including like hospitalization, like serious brain bleeds that could have taken her life. So she started a foundation to kind of help people go through similar stuff. So her and her mom, who helps her run it, are being bestowed the Members of the British Empire honor, which is like step one on the way to becoming either a sir or a dame, so to speak. So congratulations to them. I mean, it speaks to the fact that they're out there trying to do good.
By the way, not to be a um, push my glasses up on this next point, but I hope you get the last name correct.
Oh, I briefly too
The,
want to just say that I really enjoy her on screen, Amelia Clark. She's,
mhm.
I always enjoy
I
watching
do
her.
too, and
And
yeah, I was
yeah,
again. Solo, a
yeah.
Star Wars story was on, and and Brittany always says, "I want more Kira," and I'm the same
Mhm.
way. It was such an engaging character, but anything she does is really good. Sorry, Dave, stepped on you.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Um, yeah, what they filmed, what was it? The Terminator movie that she was in. They filmed in New Orleans.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, she talks about going to the Lowe's over on
yeah. You know how I know that that story is BS?
uh,
Because I actually just watched that like a couple nights ago. It was like on my YouTube feed, and I remember it was a funny story. She said she went to Home Depot at 3 in the morning.
yeah, nothing's open at 3 in the morning in New Orleans. Well,
There's not a Home
not,
Depot down. I mean, maybe the drive-through daiquiri place and Bourbon Street is open at 3 in the morning, but they're in a Home Depot down there anyway.
yeah,
But
yeah, kids, if you're ever in New Orleans, nothing good's open at 3 in the morning, or
yeah,
no
just go to
place
bed.
that you should be at 3 in the morning. But yeah,
Yes.
no, no. I mean, she's talked a bit honestly about her experiences being, you know, on that hospital bed, thinking, I'm in my 20s, I'm doing Game of Thrones, the world is at my feet, and here I am in a hospital bed, and I may die, and out of that field. So anyway, so congratulations to her, and hopefully she'll get all the way to getting knighted, but that's a step. So next topic, Tamora Morrison was being was being interviewed by News Hub, and so I started talking because he's in the new Aquaman movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and they started asking him about upcoming projects, including Book of Boba Fett, so season two. So his quote was, "quote I don't even know if there is going to be a season two," end quote. So look, I think if you were to poll the three of us, pretty sure Book of Boba Fett season two might be like lower down the totem pole
The
or
the
lower down
magic
the
the
list
magic eight
of
ball is
items.
saying chances are not good. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And if I gave you the choice between season two of Book of Boba Fett or season two of Ahsoka, which one
now,
you taking?
however, I mean, I will say I don't. I mean, if I had to put $20 down on will it or will it not, 100% no. I would put 20% or $20 down that no, it's we're not going to get season two. Now, if you were to say put $40 down on whether or not Boba Fett's going to show up in
Hmm.
an upcoming Star Wars project, I'm putting $40 down on that. I mean, because I mean, especially in Dave Filoni's Mando movie or in season two of Ahsoka, why not? It's like it's the Avengers movies had a gazillion people running all over the place, and it was really really cool. So why not have Boba Fett and Fennec Shan? So yeah, no, I don't think we're gonna get a season two.
And just from a storybook or story standpoint, where Book of Boba Fett ended, kind of left him in a good spot. So that if you want to bring him into the eventual Mandoverse movie,
And you can still bring
he's
in
ready to
Cobb. You
go.
can bring
He's
in
ready to
Cobb
go.
Vanth too. You can just, I mean, just say, yeah, I got better in the back to tank. Cool, So it's not season two per se, but those characters can come back. So yeah. Anyway,
So the other actor who's been out and about doing interviews is Adam Driver. He's been in the new Ridley Scott Ferrari movie. He
and
actually plays.
he was on the Smart
Huh?
List. He was on the Smart List podcast this past week. So
Mhm.
there you go.
Smartless podcast. He was on Rich Eisen show. He's been doing the rounds because
SNL.
again,
He was on SNL too.
that he was doing SNL because he loves SNL. He loves doing that. So obviously, the question about, and this actually comes from the Smartless podcast, about coming back to Star Wars is asked to him. And so they asked him about coming back, and he goes, he knows that they're doing, his quote goes, they're doing stuff, but not with me. I'm not doing any more. somebody asked him, "Is that because you're done? You're done because the character's done?" Meaning Kylo Ren, and he goes, "Yes." Now, this article doesn't mention, but when he got on Rich Eisen show, he even said, "Look, I had an idea about the arc of the character, and we went a different way, but I still wanted to stick too close to that arc." And so it's. I thought we did good, but I'm done with it. So while we've learned to never say never in the world of Star Wars, I imagine that Kylo Ren is more likely not coming back.
I mean, that he said that basically, like I said, he said that on Smartless, the same stuff,
Hmm.
um, and again to Dave's earlier point, it's like I don't need them or want them to rehash characters that are done and really know where to go. I mean, do something different, Dave.
Mhm.
Yeah, with Kylo Ren, it's a bit of an interesting question just because of the Rey dyad thing, and like they've taken that in a bunch of different directions. I thought that they could have, and then they killed him. So probably not now. Where where I think he might be playing possum a little bit is cameos.
Are
And
you
I think
saying
there's
we're
a
gonna
lot
get
of
Force?
potential
Are we
for
gonna get
that.
Force Ghost Ben Solo in this new movie?
The new Ray movie's coming out, and he was important to her by the end of that uh, trilogy. So maybe I wouldn't rule that out. I wouldn't rule out animation. Um, there's a lot of potential for flashback, telling stories from, you know, maybe maybe the temple throwdown where he burned down the freaking temple and the night and joined the Knights of Ren. I mean, maybe that story should appear in some format at some point, and it'd be nice to have his voice back for that. Um, so take these sorts of things with a grain of salt. He's like, "Yeah, we're done. We're done with the character." It's like, well, yes,
Until they offer you a
traditionally,
paycheck.
yes, yes, and like
I'm
from a
I'm saying
traditional sense, like he's dead, right? He's not going to come back,
I don't do
but
I don't do Danny Boy in my sets because it's not Irish and I just generally kind of don't care for the song, but but with the right amount of money, you could probably get me to do Danny Boy. Yeah, so I'll sell my soul.
Well, and particularly when you consider, like, he's not the first one to say, "Oh, I'll never come back." Like Liam Neeson was like, "I'll never come back unless it's another movie." He's there at the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, Ewan McGregor's like, "Oh, I'm done now. After episode five, say, 3, I'm done with Star Wars." He came back. So, they brought back Hayden Christensen. There's ways to bring back these characters. It's never, the door's never fully 100% closed until you shuffle off the mortal coil, and even then, we'll find ways of bringing you back.
Well, and the other thing is that anybody who's signed on to a project, I am 100%, well, 99.9% sure that they are signing an NDA. So the safest answer that they're ever going to give is, no,
Mhm.
no,
It's
it's not
it's the easiest one
happening.
to give
It's not
until
happening. I mean,
yeah.
so that you just absolutely close the door and do not give anything away. But I mean, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't. I think
until
if you listen,
until
if you listen to any of those interviews, or like I said on the Smartless podcast, the thing that I was hit with is how that, and they kept saying this, like, dude, you are just, and they're like, said you are like the epitome of an actor. He sees it. It's like it's not just it. It's not just about I want to be in Star Wars. It's like what is the role? What is the story that's being told? What is you know, and that's the thing he's taken heat on is that like what his last two roles or something been for Italian guys or something like that. He's like, who cares? It's two different stories, and it's like it's all about the story and all about the work. So
well,
it's really just fascinating listening to his story. So if you get a chance, listen to those interviews.
Well, by the way, let me correct myself. Ferrari, the director there is Michael Mann,
Hmm.
and then Ridley Scott directed him in House of Gucci. I mean, that's the kind of directors and people he wants to work with. Michael Mann, Ridley Scott, Steven Soderbergh, the kind of people who are going to put him, going to challenge him as an actor, who are going to make him go into all sorts of different stories and into all sorts of different characters. He's already worked with the likes of Spike Lee. So the idea that he's just going to be sitting around waiting for another franchise, that's not really him. And it makes sense. It's funny, there's a lot of really famous, like, um, actors who appear in a lot of franchises that we think only of them as the franchise character, but you go back and you start looking at their kind of overall career, and they're in indie films, they're in rom-coms, they're in dramas, they're in horrors because they get to work with some really talented people, and that's really what it's all about for them ultimately. And speaking of talented people, we'll go right quick if you want me to, Aaron.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Uh, I was just gonna say tomorrow we're less than 18 hours, just under 17 hours and 29 minutes from the opening of Fan Expo New Orleans
And
over at
if
the convention center.
and if any of the actors are listening to this podcast, come to the Carry on Friday and Saturday. I'm playing, so it's with anyway. Now, yeah, they got like the four major hobbits from the Lord of the Rings. They've Katie Sackhoff is there. A lot of the Terminator folks, Linda Hamilton.
Charlie Cox
Yeah,
and whatchamacallit and Vincent D'Onofrio, both from Daredevil. Bruce Campbell, Danny Trejo, Felicia Day, uh, Amadeus Fandi, Ezra.
I was
Uh,
I was
is
thinking
going to be
about
there.
going, but I'm not going to be going this year. I just did not end up getting tickets, and like I said, just too many things going on. So um, I'll have to get autographs at a later time.
Yeah, I'm skipping as well, but the Hobbit news is big. Apparently, there's going to be a congregation of hobbits at the convention. So that's for Hobbit fans out there. Yes,
Will,
get your hobbits.
will that be the run for the second breakfast? Is that what they will call it?
Yes, yes.
Um, you know, so when I first learned about the 501st was at this con in Omaha, and I remember the coolest the 500 because I was leaving the con and it was like there was a whole pile of stormtroopers all standing there, and they were all waiting to go bar hopping down in the old market, and I was just like, I wish I was in the bar that a bunch of stormtroopers walk into. How cool would that be? So, like I said, I hope so. As I'm playing tomorrow night or Saturday late afternoon, um, if a bunch of hobbits walk in, that would be awesome. So, anyway, um, cool.
So that's it in terms of news. I guess the only bit of news is that when you're playing Saturday, happy Carnival.
Yeah, that's right. 12th night. Um, so 2024, we've got 4 Star Wars things coming out. Um, we have The
You think?
Acolyte.
Yeah.
We have Tales of the Jedi season 2. We have Bad Batch season 3, and that's the final season of the Bad Batch. And then we have Skeleton Crew. So Dave, take us.
I was merely going to say that I think when we were thinking about when I was thinking about this our show, Who Dat Jedi, I was thinking like, oh well, there are no Star Wars projects currently happening, so we can be kind of creative with our topics. And I was thinking along those lines and thinking like, well, what topics could we cover? And I'm like, well, since there's this lull in Star Wars content, rare lull as things have been recently, and yet it's not really an actual lull. If you look at the upcoming calendar, there is a lot still on deck.
Well, but you said an interesting word there. That's the thing that
Yeah.
makes me concerned is that they've got release dates for, like, I've seen release dates for everything else Disney Plus, but those 4 Star Wars shows they say are coming out in 2024, they don't have release dates or release months, do they?
Coming
Again,
soon.
I mean, it stands to reason that maybe one per quarter, it's like, but there's been nothing that has been announced, and that makes me a little, if so, I think the writer strike and the actor strike has a lot to do with that. My guess is, I would think, I'm just prognosticating here, folks. Um, Bad Batch season 3 will probably come out first. And then I think it's a close race between the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, because they, at Celebration, they had footage from that already. They had trailers and whatnot. And then I think Tales of the Jedi will probably bring up the rear. But I don't know.
One thing I would say is I've seen some speculation that Skeleton Crew could potentially have a tie-in with the holidays. Maybe not Life Day itself, but some of those sorts of themes that are often prevalent in the fall and winter. And so I would kind of think like that one might bring up the rear. And Acolyte might be a summer release
Well,
for
yeah,
us.
and that makes sense with the Skeleton Crew being later in the year, because it's part of the Mando verse, so there's probably going to be some overlap with whenever we get Mando season 4, or Ahsoka season 2, and so you don't want to get things too far out of sight, out of mind. So that would make sense. The thing I want to talk, the thing that excites me about several of these, with the Acolyte, I just have no idea what to expect, and Skeleton Crew. I know a little bit of what to expect, but otherwise I'm kind of purposefully avoiding any sort of insights or spoilers or anything like that, just because I know that these are, this is just going to be new Star Wars stuff. And the Acolyte I'm really looking forward to, because it's a totally different era. That's what I'm excited for. It's something we haven't seen ever. Bad Batch, I'm looking forward just to seeing that get wrapped up and see what they do with that. I would not be a bit surprised if there's a little bit of lead into the Andor series. I bet there's some connections there at some point. Just like I said, would not be surprised. But like I said, I just love the fact that there are 2 stories that I just really don't know what to expect, and I'm excited for that. So
yeah, off the top of my head, before I let Dave answer you, I think of the 4 projects, I think Bad Batch season 3 coming out first makes the most sense. It's usually been first thing every year, the last couple of years. The only thing that kind of gives me pause is maybe they wait, because they always like to put something out on May the 4th. And if you're not putting out, say, The Acolyte, the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte, or if you put Tales of the Jedi season 2, which, those tend to be short episodes, so you can put the whole thing in one go on May the 4th. Bad Batch season 3, the first 2 episodes premiere on May the 4th, makes a ton of sense to me. So
do you
that'd
think
be the
that,
one thing that would make me go, okay, that, and then say summer to The Acolyte. And then, because you're right, Dave is right, because originally Skeleton Crew was set to be released last November, if I'm not mistaken.
so
But that's when it was supposed to come out.
if let's play the role of, like, we're the people who have to decide when this stuff goes on the calendar. You have 2 animated and 2 live action. Do you stagger, or do you bookend, or does it matter? because I see what you're saying about the May the 4th thing, and it's like if you do May the 4th and you have the Acolyte, that's not like having May the 4th and it's the Obi-Wan Kenobi, where everybody knows what Obi-Wan Kenobi, who Obi-Wan Kenobi is and what's going on. If you do the Acolyte, it's like, that's it. I don't know. It just seems maybe that's not the best place for that release. Or Skeleton Crew. Tales of the Jedi would kind of make sense on May the 4th, because it's like, I mean, here's a nice little Star Wars thing we're giving you, that doesn't make or break the universe, but it's just neat little stuff. It's a neat little present. It's not the tent pole of our release schedule. I don't know, Dave, what do you think? Does it matter if it's 2 animation back to back, or like I said,
I don't think it matters, but I also think that it does make sense to stagger them, because a lot of people look at the animation as being kind of an appetizer to the main course, which is the live action stuff. For better or worse, a lot of people just look at the live action as being meatier, more canon, more important, better. I'd say for that reason alone, because of sort of some of your audience expectations, you might want to stagger them. But I have a different question, which is, will we see anything before May the 4th? And I'm not sure I have any reason to expect that we will.
You would think that we would be getting some sort of promo action going now if we were to get something in that first quarter. That's why I said, it stands to reason. It's like release something each quarter. But here we are in Q1, and it's like, and nothing.
Yeah. So, we don't have, like you said, no trailers, no firm dates. I think it's reasonable to assume that most of these projects, or if not all of them, are not completed yet. Now, Skeleton Crew might be in the can.
I think the Acolyte is in the can as well.
Yeah. But I do think that they're holding those back a little bit. I don't think they want to launch them in the first quarter. They want sort of these projects to build off of one another. And so again, it does make sense to stagger them somewhat, and there might be, if there's any overlap at all, it'll be a couple of weeks or something like that.
What's the first Marvel thing that's coming out?
You got
the next one.
Coming. Echo comes on tomorrow, I believe. And what's interesting about that is they're dropping all episodes at once.
So Echo comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, they're advertising as more R-rated, more serious rated. It was interesting. I don't know if you noticed over the holiday period, thanks to the 20th Century Fox merger with Disney, you could find all the Die Hard movies on Disney Plus, which is kind of like, okay, I hope the kids. Yeah, exactly.
You didn't tell me this. I could have watched it finally.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Die Hard 1 wasn't on there. They had Die Hard 2, 3, 4. Thank goodness they didn't have 5, because 5 is awful. But
we don't talk about that one.
Die Hard 1 was not on there. But yeah, all the other Die Hards were on Disney Plus, and you're like, so it's interesting that they're advertising Echo as more hard edge, more mature, more serious. But what's also interesting is they're not doing their normal MCU, an episode a week kind of thing. They're just, you're all at once, 6 episodes.
That might be, I mean, I think they're probably dipping the toe in the water to see, does that staggering. I love the fact that everything we've gotten so far has been like 1 per week, because it's been an event. It's been something for me to look forward to. Mm-hmm. But I wonder how much that has made people, as they get caught up in their week, they're just like, they forget about it. You know what I mean? So I wonder if they're like, if we drop it all at once, will more people watch it to the end, and will we get better ratings? I mean, I can understand them doing that. And that's what people have trained themselves to do on Netflix. So
I think there are shows that I treat that personally that I will treat that way, that I try to stay caught up on, but I can't. And then like, oh, I'll be like, well, I'll just wait till it finishes and then I'll binge it, right?
right.
And like Star Wars is not that way for me. I appointment, set it on the calendar. We're all sitting in front of the television on Tuesday
Dad,
night or
I'm
whenever.
hungry. Shut up. We're watching Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so like it's a little different, but I do take your point. I think it's worth experimenting some, and they did What If differently.
So I bet
because they dropped them
That's
a day, and then the next day, and then the next day. So they
so
staggered it.
I bet that
little.
they don't do anything with Star Wars Q1 then, because I
No.
think I think they probably wanted to get some data on how these Marvel things went by dumping them all at once, and so they can sit and kind of look at it. I bet the first time we see anything would be May the 4th,
But also, and
and we'll probably get two things. We'll probably get a live action and an animation.
you could get Tales of the Jedi one day drop, and then maybe the first episode of the Acolyte. Which the other thing to consider is, and we've been so accustomed now, 4 years into Disney Plus, to there's a Marvel project and a Star Wars project in every quarter, and maybe we tend to forget that Ahsoka finished what, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. Like, it's not that far back. It feels far back because it's on the other side of the holiday period. But maybe they're between the strikes, between their need to kind of do a bit of a reset, reassessing their strategies, just having the opportunity right now to say, okay, we know we got Skeleton Crew in the can, we know we got the Acolyte in the can,
Since
kind
we
of give ourselves some break and see, build an interest again.
since we don't know anything, what are you guys looking most forward to? I think I told you. I said I'm looking for. I think I'm looking most forward to the Acolyte, just like I said, because it's in a totally different era that we have not seen live action before. It's been mentioned. It's been written about, but this is new as far as any animation or live action. I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be. I'm really pumped for that. I don't know, Dave. What are you looking most forward to of this slate of releases in 2024?
Maybe Skeleton Crew, because it just seems, again, kind of like the Acolyte. It's just outside of the realm of things that we've seen before. By most accounts, it's sort of like a Goonies-esque adventure, and you've got scoundrels and criminal element there going on, I think, but also just like we're kind of stuck in space, and we have to sort of figure our way through not being stranded. And that's not really a story that's been grafted onto Star Wars that I can recall, really. Other than Luke and Rey obviously wanting to get off those desert planets that they hated so much, there wasn't a lot of like, oh, we're stuck.
By the way, on a tangent here, I got to tell you, it's funny. My mother-in-law was actually talking about that exact thing. She's like, why is it that like every Star Wars movie is like desert and just barren wasteland? Like one movie was, I can't remember which movie it was on, but she goes, see there, it's a barren wasteland. That was my mother-in-law. So anyway, Fredo, what are you looking most forward to of this slate? You don't have to pick something different.
No, I think for me it is the Acolyte, primarily because it is going to be completely different um, from everything that the cast and the creators have stated. They're doing a study into the dark side. They're looking more into the bad guys or the villains of the story. It's a different place where, even with something like Mandalorian or Ahsoka, we kind of have an idea where things are going to pale towards. Here we have completely blank slate, which I love. So it'd be interesting. I did though think I was thinking as you guys were talking about, if you ever wanted to do the destruction of Luke's Jedi Temple by Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, Tales of the Jedi is a great medium to do that.
Yep.
if you ever wanted to do, say, bring Adam Driver, bring Mark Hamill, do it right then and there, do it in a way in which you could have it told and be epic and be tragic. Tales of the Jedi gives you an opportunity without asking anybody to put on a costume.
So, I did not to like deflate our anticipation for the Acolyte, but I did see somebody who was already being critical because in the Phantom Menace, it's like they're thinking that the Sith has been long gone, and they're like totally dumbfounded that there's Sith has come back, and here we are, with the Acolyte, and we're talking about it's like it's not that far in the past where apparently we're going to have bad guys running around. I don't know. We don't know anything that's going on, but people are already starting to try to throw holes, or throw darts at the continuity raft. And I was going to ask you about the Tales of the Jedi. Do we know any of the stories that are coming, or do we have any guesses? Any stories that you would like? I think that's a good idea, Fredo. That's a Tales of the Jedi.
That'd be a good one.
You could also, for that matter, there's going to be a big gap there where maybe Rey is training Finn. You could have a Rey and Finn story.
You're provided the opportunity to fill in gaps that right now you're doing a lot of that with the books, or you've done with that with the books. Tales of the Jedi gives you the opportunity to tell those stories in a concise fashion.
This could be
in a way which connect with people in a more immediate fashion.
I have one that I want to see, and that's Obi-Wan Qui-Gon. That would be, post Obi-Wan Kenobi. So to see his training, much like, Yoda's training on, in the last season or second to last season of the Clone Wars. But that's something that just would like be horrible for an entire live action season. But 2 quick little episodes of Tales of the Jedi, or maybe even one, I think that would be really cool. Just about the nature of the Force and how to, explain away how Obi-Wan was able to disappear when Vader sliced him down.
Much the same way as you had those 2 episodes with Count Dooku at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
Again, it gives you opportunity to fill in little holes that, you didn't know you wanted, kind of mess with. But then
I always want to know what happened to
Yaddle. Awesome. Mm-hmm.
How old is Anakin in Phantom Menace? Is it like 10 or something like that? 10. So there's like this gap, right? There's like this 8-year gap where you don't see anything and you don't know anything. You know that his relationship with Obi-Wan is somewhat strained, but you don't really see anything relating to that. And the machinations going on behind the scene with Palpatine and Dooku and more of that stuff. I think that whole time period is sort of like fertile ground. I'd love to see stuff during that particular time period.
It'd be funny if we ever get Darth Plagueis, but we get him in Tales of the Jedi. Or we finally, show it to us that all the nerds who have built that whole idea of his relationship with Palpatine, either put it to bed or confirm it.
I want like Yoda and Yaddle, like all in the family, sitting in recliners, and
So we don't give it short shrift though. Bad Batch. Any thoughts on that? Any expectations?
Honestly, I have to go back and watch season 2 to remember what I remember where we left off and everything, but I'm trying to remember what all because there was a couple different. I know Crosshair and Omega are basically captive, so we got to resolve that. And the others are living. Well, Tech is dead, supposedly. And Hunter and Wrecker are living on Gilligan's Island. So, I don't know. Yeah, but the whole thing was about the basically the cloning facility that the Empire's trying to kick up. So I don't know where it's going to go. That's the thing. And knowing that it's going to be what, about 16 episodes probably, is makes me kind of exhausted thinking about where the story's going to go. Of course, maybe it'll be like 9 episodes because it's just like we just need to put a bow on this and go. I don't know.
I think like you were talking about it potentially tying in with
Andor.
Andor,
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
And I
there
also
could be with Luthen and with the Luthen Saw Gerrera link. We've already had Saw Gerrera in the Bad Batch, so possibility if he could be in there. There's plenty of ends they could tie up, but
I think I would be disappointed if they didn't lean more into the cloning stuff. At least as far as like tying some things together a little bit more. Maybe not even necessarily a Snoke appearance, but just maybe an acknowledgement that that's where they're headed.
or do you think we'll get confirmation that what we thought all along is that the stormtroopers, maybe they started out as enlisted folk, but maybe they decide to clone?
Yeah, no, like there's a lot they could do there. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high because the series so far has been fine. At times emotional, at times genuinely good, but at other times just fine. Week to week it varies.
Well, and it's potentially problematic as well because I still put money down that Omega is force sensitive. And so now if you just create another, and I know everybody has the force. So, but I mean, if you have another one, if you make her like really powerful all of a sudden, then that's a really, kind of awkward puzzle piece that's sitting there unless you give some good resolution to it.
I am beginning to worry that if they try to add more elements that we're going to feel pressed for time. If in episode 1 they're like, well, let's lay the groundwork for the season, and you're introducing a bunch of new characters
And
and
then episode
ideas
2,
and
they go
themes.
on a shopping run. Yeah.
I'm just, or if it's just like another typical mission episode where like, oh, we need more money, we're out of money, we got to run and make more money. I'm gonna immediately start feeling like, okay, I'm looking at my watch here, guys. You only have X number of episodes to wrap this thing up. And, to use your phrase, like that might take me out of it a little bit. I'm going to be like, really? Really? But, I'm still hopeful. And again, like with the cloning stuff, there's a lot they can do there. So I hope we get some nuggets, and I don't have like huge expectations, but just give us a little something there.
Well, and particularly when you consider that the cloning element still remains relevant into the Mandoverse. So while it's not going to necessarily probably tie in directly, you probably want to see some of those offshoots pay off in Mandalorian season 4, but they have to be shown. You have to show why, because we know that this will continue on to the sequel trilogy because somehow Palpatine returned. So at some point, you want to start laying all those foundations. I think Bad Batch is going to be the place to lay those foundations in regarding the cloning project, regarding force sensitive cloning, regarding what eventually ends up happening to Mando and Grogu. So I think it'll be interesting if they do that. But you're right, 16 half hour episodes don't give you a lot of time to just mess around. You don't get okay, this is the fun episode where Wrecker does funny bit A and Tech did funny bit B like he did last season because now you're against the clock, so to speak.
What if Omega shows up in Skeleton Crew. Or what would make more sense, getting to what we were talking about earlier, Mando Season 4, Boba Fett is reunited with his sister Omega. And they are both then part of that super crew for Dave Filoni's movie. So you go a animated Omega to a live action Omega. That's not far-fetched. That's not far-fetched at all. Because they've already said that she's Boba Fett's, twin,
I'm kind of, if I'd lay money down, I think like we're going to get some sort of allusion to or explanation for Dark Troopers or Death Troopers or some of these weird sort of stormtrooper offshoots that we've seen in other places. They're going to include some of that stuff. That would be my guess.
Look, Aaron just wants to see Tamora Morrison in a wig.
No. But no, I mean, it kind of, it makes sense. I mean, but however, Dave, to that point, I don't want them to use any of these series or anything just to explain things that have ticked people off for a long time. It's like, where did Death Troopers come from? And, and I'm not dismissing your point by using that dumb voice, but you know what I mean? You hear that person is like, when they first saw Rogue One, it's like, why haven't we seen Death Troopers before? It's like, but, I don't want them to use, that and Tales of the Jedi and everything just to like,
Set up the further setup.
just to retcon and fix everything. You know what I mean? It's like, tell new stories. You don't have to fix things. You don't have to. Even when I said it would be interesting to see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and maybe how Obi-Wan was trained to be able to disappear when he died. If that is the reason why you're telling that story, is that so people can shut up about Obi-Wan disappearing, then don't make that story. You know what I mean? Make it because it's an interesting story to tell.
Intent matters. I think like these things just, they can be forced, for lack of a better term, right? They can be forced. And with Bad Bad, the story that they actually need to tell is about soldiers finding their way back into society
and being lost within society and forgotten.
Figuring that stuff out. Then that was sort of the promise of the series originally. So like that's mission one. That's mission critical right there. Do that. And then if during the course of that you give us some cool Star Wars goodies, so much the better, because it will be in the pursuit of something distinct or interesting on its own merits.
Well, we have rambled a lot about this, and like I said, with no information to go on. That's the frustrating thing, is that we have no dates. All we know is that they're coming out, they say, in 2024. How confident are, last question to go around the horn here before we sign off, because Dave's already drinking chicken soup and getting kisses from his wife on on camera. How confident are you that we're going to see all four of those series in 2024 on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not confident at all and 5 being, we're seeing all of them? I would say I'm at a 3, because we don't have any dates. That makes me, I don't feel confident that we're going to see all four of them in 2024.
2 of the series are in the can, and Tales of the Jedi is very limited in nature, so there's a really good chance we get 3 of 4. I'd say I'm at a 4.
Okay.
I think
That
I'm with
tracks with
Dave.
this podcast. I'm the negative Nancy, and you guys are poly positivity. And anyway, go ahead, Fredo.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm with Dave. I'm at a 4. I just think from the standpoint of we know that the two live action shows are either in the can or 90% in, where they may just need a reshoot or a special effect touch up. Bad Batch should be coming out. Tales of the Jedi, they told us during last celebration, was scheduled for this year. And when you consider it, I mean, this is years past, we would have 6, 7 Disney Plus Star Wars shows. We're talking about 4, which when you look at it, it's not that big of a slate. Not as much
When
as
did
they've
we
had in
have
years
6 or
past.
7 Disney Plus like Star Wars shows?
Remember when they came out? We had Mandalorian, you had the Book of Boba Fett, you had
Not in the
uh,
same year.
Rebels. I mean, like they were
For
coming
the
out one after the other.
Visions and the different animated
You
things
know,
and
I would
the Ahmad Best game show and like all these things, right?
I just
Mhm.
just to give like more support to my 3. I would be at a 4 as well if we hadn't have just come out of a writer and actor strike, because the animated stuff, that's a heck of a lot of voice actor work, that and a lot of also production work that needs to be done. Um, so like I said, I would be at a 4 as well if it hadn't been for the strikes leading in. So that's why I'm at my 3. Um,
Yeah, I think I'll be there with you if most of the stuff wasn't already done. Like I said, Skeleton Crew was scheduled originally to come out last November. The Acolyte was finished principal photography right before the strike went in, so it's been in post production, and that didn't go on strike. And Bad Batch, all that the audio acting gets done first, and then they animate. So while I agree with you, I think what'll be interesting to see, it'll be interesting to see if this gets backloaded. We go through the first quarter, no Star Wars, and it's not until May the 4th that we start getting stuff, and then it goes through the end of the year.
well, we shall see. Um, but like Fredo alluded to earlier, if you're in the New Orleans area, heck, even if you're not in New Orleans area, just know Carnival starts on Saturday, and it's a short carnival. And Mardi Gras Day is on my birthday this year, everybody. So Fredo and I are going to have a very busy weekend, because mine's on Mardi Gras Day. Yours is on Tux Saturday, right? Or is it on? No, it's Endymion Sunday, isn't it?
Iris and Tux Saturday, which is also Endymion Saturday.
Oh, Saturday. Yes. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go watch Endymion now because it's your birthday. But so yeah, it's going to be Fast and Furious, and so
And like Fast and Furious, it's all about family.
sure. Another franchise I have not watched one movie of, so I don't think I need to either. I don't think you guys will fault me for not seeing the Fast and Furious. But anyway, um, anyway, hope you all have a very wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope you had a wonderful holiday season. Go Pels. It is Falcons Hate Week, so beat the Falcons. Anything else? I don't know. We will just say who dat,
Who dat?
Who dat?
and everybody have a great week.
McConkey.